Hi, this is Mr. West, and today we're doing a Khan Academy tutorial on constant and proportionality from graphs. For this tutorial video, we're going to be covering a concept called proportionality. And if we're talking about graphs, if it continues to be proportional for the duration of the graph, then it's constantly proportionate. And so we can find that constant of proportionality. What makes it, what is that ratio of the y to the x, as you see on the screen there, that makes it proportionate. So let's talk about what proportionate means, in case you're unfamiliar. If we have fractions, we can make equivalent fractions by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same thing. So for example, 1/3 is equal to 2/3. Why? Because the 1/3 is equal to 2/6, and that's because we can multiply the numerator and denominator by the same thing. It's essentially just scaled up. It looks different, but it's the same proportions. It's the same fraction. Expressed another way, if you have, for example, 1/3 of a pizza, pizza is the easiest way to understand fractions. And then the first pizza is cut into thirds, and the second one is cut into sixths. If you have 1/3 shaded in, and then the second one you have 2/6 shaded in, it's the same amount of pizza. So that's another way to think of it. And then fractions, multiple fractions can be proportionate to each other. So if I multiply this top number by 5 and this one by 5, I see that those two fractions, 1/3 and 5/15, is proportionate. And also, it doesn't have to be a whole number. So I could multiply the 2 times 2.5 and then this times 2.5, and as long as I multiply by the same number on the top and bottom for those fractions, all those fractions are proportionate to each other. You can also go the other way and divide. Okay, so that's a quick info about proportionality. The other thing I want to talk about is y over x. This is the easiest way to determine, and the way to determine if it's proportionate or not. What do we do with that? Well, we need a point. So we can find, it looks like it just gives us one point here, but we could find many, many points on this line and then go from there. So as you can see here, there's a point. I'm just looking for intersections, but I don't even think I need that because I have this one right here given for us, and that is 1, 4. So that's my x and that's my y. Now I'm guessing that because it's asking for constant proportionality, we have to assume that this is a straight line, that it doesn't like bend at the last minute or like have some sort of dip or something like that. Okay, that'd be weird stuff. So we're going to assume that it's just a straight line. It's going to continue to be that way. So we have our y and our x, and we're going to consider that for each time we go over a certain amount, that's going to go up for the same amount of y. So what do I mean by that? Well, here, if we decide to do y over x, we're going to get 4 over 1, or just 4. So I'm going to type in 4 as my answer, but I want to explain what that means. That means I'm going to go over right 1 unit and up 4 units every single time to make points on this graph. Let me show you. So for this graph, my first one, I went over 1 unit and I went up 4. I'm going to continue to do that. So every time I move to the right 1 unit, so now we're at 2, I'm going to go up 4 units, and that's going to be another point. And I can continue to do this forever, and it's always going to be on my line. So if you can see here, I had 1, 4, 2, 8, and then the last one is 3, 12. So you can see if I did 12 divided by 3, that equals 4. 8 divided by 2, that equals 4. 4 divided by 1, that equals 4. So you can see that it's always consistent. It is always constant. Okay, so I think you're seeing what that comes into play with in terms of constant. Now, later on, you're going to see that constant of proportionality is simply the slope of the line. But that's later on. Here we go. Line A, B, and C show proportional relationships. Which line has a constant proportionality between y and x of 2/3? Okay, so again, same deal here. We want y over x. And essentially we want to see which of these lines goes up 2 units and then goes right 3 units. That's what it's saying there. The top part's the y is the up and down, and then the bottom one is the x, the left and right. So we want to see which one goes up 2 and to the right 3. So I'm just going to start at the origin. They're all starting at the origin. That's 0, 0 right here. And I want to see which one goes up 2 units. 1, 2. And then to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Looks like we have a winner. It's line C. Notice that I know it's line C because that's the only line where this ratio, where I go up 2 units and right 3, is the only line that has that as a point. One thing that some students find confusing is they're like, I don't understand why you went up first and to the right. I thought when you plot points, for example, this one is 3, 2, you're supposed to go right first and then up. I always just go out of habit. I go up first because when you're graphing slope, generally this is what you consider rise over run. So I'd like to go up first and then to the right, but honestly it doesn't matter. Some people you could go to the right first and then up to stay consistent with the XY plotting. I just wanted to make that note in case you're confused about how I did that order, okay? So just wanted to clarify that, but the correct answer is C for this question. And let's move on to, we got just 2 more here. What is the constant proportionality between y and x in this graph? So I'm going to show you that it's, you don't have to necessarily label the points. So I could label this points, and this would be, what is this? 5, 1. All right, so you might figure out just from that, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to find what is my upward movement on my y and what's my right movement with my x, and that will tell me. So I go up 1 unit from the origin. So I'm starting at the origin each time, okay, because if it's proportionate, if it has proportionality, that means it has to start through 0, 0, okay? That's just a given. It has to for proportional relationships. When you get into y equals mx plus b, it doesn't have to be that way. But for right now, proportionality, yes. So I go up 1 unit. So my change in y, my upward movement in y is 1. And then for my x, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I move 5 units to the right. And that is my constant proportionality, 1, 5. And you probably could just figure that out because if you do y over x, that's 1 divided by 5, and you get the same thing. But I wanted to show you that you can do the same thing visually on your graph without using the coordinates, okay, as long as you can see that it goes through a determined point. Okay, so I just wanted to show that. We need to put the fraction here, 1 on the top, 5 in the bottom. And let's move on to the last question. Okay, so what is the constant proportionality? Last one. Okay, this one, again, we can say, all right, we could either use this decimal here, or we can try to find a point that we know goes through some whole numbers. That's generally what I like to do. I mean, technically we could find it. It's like, okay, what are the coordinates of that point that's like not on the grid? That's not very helpful. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to try to find a point using some whole numbers for x and y. So I notice here that 2, 1 is a solid point that I could use, and I just do y divided by x, or say, okay, I went 1 unit up, and then 2 units to the right, so it's going to be 1 over 2, so 1/2. And you can see that too, okay, so if I go up 0.5 and over 1, okay, that's equal to the same thing. Okay, it just looks different. Notice how I just multiply this by 2 and that by 2. Stays the same, right? I multiply the top and bottom by the same number. It just looks like a different fraction, okay? So 1 over 2, and I'm done. I think that's fairly simple once you understand like the nuance. Oh, looks like we had an error processing, so it doesn't give me the confetti. Oh well. But the bottom line is, once you understand the process of proportionality, I think it comes very simple. If you have any questions on this video, make sure to leave a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time right here on Wes Explains Best.